Thank you. I'll be reading off my phone for most of this, so I apologize if I don't. Okay. My name is Paramdeep. I'm known in the production world as I Am Still Truth and in the rap world as Param. I am the co-founder of a multi-platinum record label called Blackout Entertainment alongside my then partner Harmony Samuels. I've worked with a multitude of artists from UK grime legends So Solid and Gets to UK rap legends such as Snap Capone, with whom I have several songs with several million views, to Joe Black, Pac-Man, Jaja Soze, as well as Giggs and his SN1 crew. I have produced for international hip-hop legends such as Grammy-nominated Foreign Beggars. I've been signed to EMI USA under super producer Rodney Jerkins, who has produced for Lady Gaga, Beyonce, and Michael Jackson. I have also written for and rapped with the hip-hop mogul Sean P. Diddy Combs. I've accumulated millions of streams, as well as recently starting my own independent label with my partner, Miss DJ Candy, and we have signed an upcoming Brighton rapper called Dread to a production deal, who is also the son of Soul to Soul legend Doreen Waddle. Rest in peace. I have been playlisted on Radio 1 Extra, and last year managed to go #1 in the official charts for hip hop and R&B. I've also had music featured on FIFA 22 by EA Games, and I run my own small studio setup as working on my own rap career and teaching and mentoring here at Trinity Laban. So that's a little bit about me. Thank you. And now I'll start my boring story. Having gone to primary school in Kenya and been raised in a Sikh household, as you can probably imagine, my musical background was very culturally diverse, something that most British ethnic minorities will most likely be familiar with. In my case, a mix of Punjabi shabads sung in Sanskrit or Punjabi would play from 6 a.m. in my mother's kitchen, as well as East African anthems such as Malaika on the radio back home in Nairobi. My father was also a huge music fan and definitely influenced me. I used to look at his vinyl player and try to scratch what are now invaluable Lou Reed Transformer records on his turntable when no one was looking. This got me into a lot of trouble, but somehow made me want to do it more, to my father's dismay. Bad look for me. Ironically, I could not stand music lessons at school. We had a tiny little music room and it was hyper traditional. I remember being really horrified that they wanted to teach us the guitar with it resting on our left leg because it was totally not rock star. It felt really classical and icky and I was not into it. I was a kid that was just discovering Nas, the Wu-Tang Clan, Rage Against the Machine, and Tupac. So you can imagine my trauma at having to listen to someone bang on about Beethoven for an hour. I wanted to jump out of the window. I did, even at that young age in my music lessons, feel a total outcast. I felt I was blocked by a melanin barrier. I felt lonely. I think I did want to connect to music, but the language that spoke to me forever was hip hop. And that was something that was unthinkable to even discuss at my school at the time, which was around 1991 or 1992. I felt my background and cultural identity blocked me or wanted me to change and go a particular way to connect with music, but I did not want to compromise my idea of what I thought music was and change it just to drive to a location I didn't even know I wanted to go to. However, as always, hip hop has always been my greatest teacher, and after spending many years making beats, sampling, interpolating various genres of decades of music, it became apparent that I probably should have paid more attention to what my teachers were trying to teach me. The things that were being taught were the foundations of all music and therefore the basis of my beautiful genre. I say that to say there's probably much more of a link between contemporary music and education even at a young age, but you perhaps don't realize it until it's actually too late to matter anymore. That's a bit of a peculiar cycle. I was a typical rebellious youth who wanted bass, explicit lyrics, meaning, and something that could give a story to my ethnic teenage life, and music education at school was not providing that. Much like today, hip hop was still a dirty word. I ended up paying a kid in the year above me to teach me to play the guitar because I was obsessed with Rage Against the Machine, and that kind of acted as a bridge between rock and rap, which kind of gave me a way to fit in with at school, basically. I.e. the acceptable and the non-acceptable. I was basically doing what I could do to fit in and be involved. This environment actually forced me away from the making of music, and consequently I found what we in hip hop know as the pen. I started writing raps at the age of 15. I had a CD with a song called Pain by Tupac, which was the B-side of Warren G's, whatever that huge single was that came out in England in the 90s, Regulate. It was the B-side and it had an instrumental. It spoke to the trauma and pain of being a young brown kid, and the fire in my belly was lit. I knew what I wanted to do. Hip hop was it, till the end. I messed around for a few years in various sixth forms, trying things out until I found what we now affectionately call the Brook or T Block. Northbrook was a game changer. I applied back then to what was one of the first courses of its kind in the country, a music technology diploma. I read about the course in a career library of a sixth form college that I was trying to leave. There was no audition for this course, just apply and hope. Luckily, a man named Mike Pelthorpe, who I still consider a mentor to this day, took a chance and let me in. The first day there, we walked into a warehouse full of mini studios, decked out with rack samplers, synths, and rows of Cube-based computers, and a couple of full studios. This was like a dream. One of our first lessons was DAW basics, that's digital audio workstations, basics on Cubase, and I became totally hooked. Upon learning the absolute basics, I ditched all the lessons and began coming in only to use the equipment which I had no chance of affording at the time. If we were to use Malcolm Gladwell's outliers as a gauge, my first 1,000 hours were probably spent in the tiny pre-production booths in the Northbrook warehouse. To this day, I have no idea how they let us lock those from the inside. Our teachers used to knock on the windows on the doors to tell us to come to lessons, but we either wouldn't hear them on purpose or just plain ignored them. We laid pages and pages of rhymes out across the floor, and with beats playing from the monitors, we would rap for hours over our own self-produced instrumentals. This was the start of my career without me knowing, in the halls of education, but was still no link to actual education or educational classes. Once again, the lessons felt a bit stiff, out of touch, and nothing really connected until it really connected. I will say, in hindsight, they were in the early years of the course, and today, Mike still mentors me, and Northbrook is pretty much on the cutting edge of production teaching. A particular project I remember from Northbrook was having to recreate a song of our choice. I straight away chose the incredible Quiet Storm by Mobb Deep because I was absolutely obsessed with Queensbridge rap, and got to work on finding and chopping the White Line sample to emulate the incredible Havoc production. This was a moment I will never forget. I realized how simple yet incredibly thought out the production was. It left a mark, making me want to think as cleverly as Havoc did. I guess the standout point to me was the access to equipment. I had a chance to touch and use real music technology. They tried to help and guide us, but I kind of had my own hunger and vision and something that I just wanted to puke out in the world. I will say, ironically, years later, I met Prodigy from Mobb Deep, and he ended up doing the intro to my first ever mixtape, which was absolutely mind-blowing at the time. I never ended up finishing my diploma at Northbrook. I'm from a working class background. My parents were never home because they worked as many as 5 jobs each at times. So I was a kid that tended to get lost in the streets for weeks or even months at a time, including trouble with the police, etc., all the stuff that a young brown kid goes through. Having learned what I thought was enough, it definitely wasn't. I then decided I would attempt a music career full time. In the meantime, I'd become a bit of a local street legend in Brighton, and everyone knew me for rapping. So I got a bit of an ego. To my teacher's dismay, I left, and I managed to acquire my own tiny studio setup, which was a rack sampler, an Akai S5000, which they definitely don't make anymore, and a Fostex 8-track hard disk recorder, which, I don't know, it exploded or something, and got to work on making my own songs. This then led me to accidentally meet who would be my production partner for the next 15 years, Harmony Samuels, who's worked with Beyonce, Rick Ross. I mean, if you're welcome to look him up now. The discography is long, and we produced a Chipmunks Transition album together, and then onto a recording contract with EMI USA under super producer Rodney Jerkins. At which point we basically left England wholesale and moved to America, and I was then there for 4 or 5 years. Ending up in P. Diddy's house every day for 18 months, which is another story. I'm actually skipping a huge chunk of the story out because time is kind of short. The time at Northbrook, mixed with my youthful stubbornness and vision, didn't yield any educational success. I was lucky to be there at all, which was something I realized much later, but it gave me a place, some guidance, and a chance to access equipment. The rest was on me. I feel like this is an opportunity to say something about what we in hip hop call the hustler. I have an acronym for hustler, which is H, hardworking, U, unstoppable, S, strong, T, tenacious, L, in love with the process, E, to be entrepreneurial, and R, to be relentless. Without hustle, I would not have achieved any of my tiny successes, from reaching the #1 official chart spot independently last year with Pac-Man, to writing bars for P. Diddy or appearing on remixes with Tiny Temper and Chip. Last year, I had music placed on EA Games FIFA 22, one of, if not the biggest video games on the planet. During the pandemic, we started a label called M23 Records and signed the son of Soul to Soul Records, the Soul to Soul's Doreen Waddle, Dread. I've accumulated millions of streams and YouTube plays with various UK rap legends such as SAS, Snap Capone and Joe Black. I'm currently working on records for gigs, as well as a mixtape and an EP for my own personal recording career. The vast majority of these moments were made by driving endlessly through obstacles and being relentless, studying interviews in magazines and documentaries, being passionate, and most importantly, being absolutely absorbed and obsessed with the art of hip hop. I guess watching my parents work all of those jobs instilled something in me. I didn't want to work for anyone, but I understood that I had to work hard at whatever it was to get where I needed to be. In my one-to-ones with my great students here at Trinity Laban, one of the major things I try and imbue is get up and go. No one's gonna do this for you. You have to get out, connect, attempt, and fail. And biggest of all, get up and go again. And then when you fail, get up and go again and repeat that process. This is a hustle. My hip hop forefathers were not stopped by police violence, racism, or poverty, and I won't be stopped either. This is a hustle. The need to work, the need to grind, and the need to reward yourself for the time spent. This is perhaps one of my most major points. Nowhere in our syllabus do we have lessons on hustle. In my opinion, to bridge the gap between education and the industry, we must teach hustle. Otherwise, we must be prepared to accept that talented students leaving education might be forced to work for the industry in situations that are potentially limited. In the fast evolving world of the internet, more and more artists are forced to become more self-sufficient. I believe we need to support them in their endeavors in this regard, no matter the vocational outcome. This will in turn domino back to education when genuine superstars start coming from the halls of institution. To me, this would be the apex of the music industry and probably a future renaissance. Where are the lessons on failure, the lessons on coming back to try again, the lessons on studio etiquette, the lessons on the incredible diversity in musical income pathways, the lessons that prepare you for a record label meeting, and how to move in the Jay-Z termed room full of vultures, the lessons on how to survive the people that constantly tell you art is not a job, the lessons to detract from the dangerous social media effect of clout or likes over talent, the lessons on building yourself before putting yourself out there in the internet generation, the lessons on how to book your own shows, how to speak to promoters, the lessons on consistency. What I'm getting at here is practicality. All of the things I've just mentioned root back to the practical. In the world of contemporary music, there's practical rules. In the industry, it's what can you really do, not what do you know, although those two things are tied together. Let's turn our students into tomorrow's stars. They're all around us right now. They're playing in practice rooms over there. They're having coffee in the canteen and they're smoking fags on the Thames. In that sense, I think if the music industry could become a bit more like education and the education system could become a bit more industrial, we would have a connection point to build a better reality for all the practitioners. I'm near the end now, and I'm going to say a word about something that has deeply bothered me for years concerning this genre of music. This all starts with respect. To acquire a greater respect for our musical culture, it has to resonate firstly from within. It's very complicated. We must address the incredible diversity of sound and statement from across the many genres of ethnic immigrant music, i.e. hip hop. We have a chance to pass the one-day celebrations, i.e. Black Music Month, held by media outlets that supposedly uplift and recognize our icons, by ourselves individually recognizing and respecting the nuances of each genre. Taking the time to learn the various names, the practitioners, and the effects of their sounds on their local communities. This feels to me something far more permanent and meaningful to both education and the industrial side of this issue. Let's start addressing these genres as what they are. Hip hop, rap, UK rap, trap, drill, bashment, reggae, ska, NY drill, Chicago drill, Afrobeat, West Coast rap, Southern rap, the list goes on forever. If music is made in a city, it's urban. Abbey Road's in a city, it's in London. That makes the Beatles urban. This makes no sense. Marginalizing our artists by smearing with the term urban only downplays the incredible musical history behind these artists. I'll give you one example. Nas, who in my opinion is the best lyricist on planet Earth, regardless of genre. That's just my take. His father is a decorated and legendary jazz musician. His name is Oludara. How do we expect to get away from terms such as urban if we're not recognizing the cultural legacy and lines of these artists? We cannot, on one hand, applaud the resilience of the ethnic struggle, but simultaneously downplay its legacy. What foundation are we building for us to elevate this pivotal, ruling music culture? Thank you very much.